Okay, I should be live. Gotta come all the way around here to where I can get hooked up onto my microphone. Let's see, get that clipped on. How in the way is this going to be? Let me see. Wrangle my cords. I never know how this is going to work out until I actually do it. Get this clipped onto this side, maybe. Can you hear me good? Of course, there's a delay on the chat on the StreamYard, so I got to wait and see if anybody can actually hear what I'm saying. All right. What I'm doing tonight is I'm going to make a video while I'm doing my live stream. Try and kill two birds with one stone. The needy homesteader, Heather, has been out of commission lately, and a bunch of us have been making videos to help keep her channel going. And I made a couple of them so far. I made one making some breadsticks from the cast iron breadstick pan. Turned out really good. And I did one that was a little bit of an introduction to cast iron. Because years back, when Heather decided she was going to move away from aluminum and Teflon cookware to cast iron, she came to me and asked for a little bit of advice on how to go about it. So the kind of the theme of the videos that we've been doing for her channel are inspired by Needy. You know, some of the things that, you know, we've shared with her over the years and she shared with us, you know, different recipes and whatnot. So anyway, I gave her some advice on cast iron and she took to it. So I was going to do the same thing for her channel. So like I said, I made a little introduction video, you know, explaining some of the differences of cast iron, some of the different things. And I recommended that people start off with Lodge cast iron because it's good stuff. It's high quality, it's inexpensive, it's easy to find. And if you just don't like cast iron, you're not out a whole lot of money if you, you know, don't keep using it. So I bought a brand new little Lodge skillet. Still got the label right there. And I'm going to do a video about using cast iron for the very first time. Now, some of you have probably seen a lot of the stuff that I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is you know, explain a little bit about the care and maintenance of cast iron, some of the differences of cooking with cast iron as opposed to cooking with aluminum or stainless steel or whatever. And I'm going to fry up some potatoes because that's what I always do with a new pan. And you know, Lodge pans come pre-seasoned, so I don't. I'm not going to get into seasoning, you know, or a whole lot of detail on restoration or anything like that in the video. It'll be what to expect the first time you use cast iron. Now, you can see the legs of the tripod. I have my regular video camera set up over here on this side, and I got my webcam right there. And I think somehow or other I managed to get the handle on the boom arm into the picture, but I don't know what I did. I got something backwards, I guess. Anyway, I gotta get a drink. I'm thirsty. I barely made it in time. We barely got set up in time because I've been working 410s, and I get home about 5:30, which gives me just enough time to get cleaned up. And I didn't have anything set up this time. Last time around, I had it all set up beforehand, which was smart, but I'm kind of dumb this time around. So I gotta grab a drink quick, and then I will be right back, and we'll get underway filming the video. Okay, get my mic back on. This is kind of a little bit of a pain with this lapel mic because for the video I just use the mic that's built into my video camera. Also, I'd like to remind you, having the membership drive, we're up to 15 channel members, which is great. 5 more, and this will be one of 2 things up for grabs. That's a nickel-plated, vintage, Wagnerware cornstick pan. Beautiful thing, isn't it? But that's going to be up for grabs along with something else which I haven't decided on yet. And I got to set this aside. And once I get 20 people, I will have a drawing for that. And like I said, something else. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, I'm going to start the video and I'll do my little introduction and my spiel. And you can follow along. Like I said, a lot of you have probably seen some of this before, but if not, there might be some useful information in there, even for somebody who knows a bit about cast iron. And hopefully this will be useful for somebody who's a complete novice and has never done this before. Okay, get my camera started. Yep, my angle is still right. And here we go. Hi, the Mudbrooker here. I'm doing another video for the Inspired by Needy series that we've been doing here on Heather's channel. Previously, I did a little bit of an introduction to cast iron, and I told you about Lodge cast iron as the ideal sort of cast iron pan for someone who's never used cast iron before and wants to try it out and see if it's for them. Now, I went and bought a brand new, this is a number 5 skillet. It's about 8 inches. What I recommend you buy for your first skillet is a number 8 skillet. They're about 10.5 inches. It's a bigger size, and you can do all kinds of things with it. It's really useful. It's probably the most popular size of a cast iron skillet out there. Anyway, you got yourself a brand new Lodge pan. They come pre-seasoned, and Lodge has a bit of a pebbly texture to them. That doesn't really affect the non-stick, but if you want, you can look through the different pans at the store and find one that feels nicest, feels smoothest. If one's really, really rough, go ahead and pick a different one. But it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Take your label off and wash this in soap and water, hot soapy water. Now, there's a lot of myths about cast iron and a lot of old wives' tale. Fortunately, most of them are harmless. They don't really make much difference. But you don't necessarily have to. And that dog has got to get in the way. Milo, right now is where I have to pause in my spiel and let my dog out. I'm going to let you out. You're going to start barking. You're going to make a huge nuisance of yourself. I could sit here staring at the ceiling all day long and wouldn't hear a peep out of that mutt until I start doing something. Anyway, where was I? Old wives' tales. Oh yeah. Restart the camera. Most of the myths about cast iron are pretty much harmless, and it's a matter of personal choice if you want to do it. One of the myths is never wash cast iron. You can. In fact, every once in a while you should. Scrub your cast iron with hot soapy water and something like this. This is a stainless steel scrubber. This is actually 2 of them. They come in packs of 2 or 3. I take 2 of them, set them on top of each other, and just roll them together like a pair of socks. Then I got one bigger scrubber. But anyway, wash it with hot soapy water, put it on the stove, and warm it up until it's good and dry. You're going to do that every time you wash a cast iron pan. After you wash it, warm it up, dry it on the stove, and then oil it down lightly with whatever kind of cooking oil you typically use. I use clarified butter for most of my cooking. Anyway, once it's dry and wiped off, then you can put it away. When you oil up a cast iron pan, put a very light coat on it, let it cool down, and then wipe it off again. it's kind of hard to tell with a Lodge skillet because they have sort of a shiny finish from the factory. But you want to wipe it until it doesn't look shiny anymore, until it just has kind of a satin sheen to it. You don't want to have a wet, glossy look, because one of the biggest complaints about cast iron is that your cast iron has gotten sticky. That's because you've left too much oil on it, and that oil eventually will turn sticky. There's a few ways you can deal with it. You can try scrubbing it in very hot, soapy water. A lot of times, if it's not too bad, that'll help. If that doesn't take the stickiness off, wipe it down with some oil, a fairly generous amount, put it in the oven at about 350 degrees for a half hour or so till it's heated all the way through. Take it out, and while it's still hot, wipe it off real good, put more oil on it, let it heat up again, wipe it off, do that a few times, and the hot oil should act as a solvent to help remove the sticky oil that's building up on it. That's one of the reasons why you should wash your cast iron from time to time in hot soapy water, is to help prevent excess buildup of oil on the outside of it. But anyway, you want to, the first time you're going to use your cast iron, you want to choose a burner that's about the same size as the pan. This one's a little bit bigger, but that's okay. Put a smaller pan on your smaller burner, bigger pans on your bigger burner. Most people say the best thing to cook in cast iron the first time is bacon. And it's not a bad choice, but I prefer potatoes. And I'll tell you why once we get underway. I'm going to turn this on medium-ish low and let this warm up a little bit before we start cooking. You want to let your cast iron heat up a bit before you add oil or anything like that, especially if it's a bigger pan, because it'll take a while for it to heat all the way through and for the entire pan to get heated. Get over here, these potatoes, and my fork. Now, a lot of people say cast iron heats very evenly. It really conducts the heat well. The truth is, aluminum is actually more conductive to heat than cast iron. An aluminum pan will heat up faster, and it'll heat all the way through sooner than the comparable cast iron pan. But what cast iron does is it retains heat extremely well. And because of this, the first time you cook with cast iron, you're probably going to notice that you have to cook at a lower temperature on your burner than you normally would if you're used to using aluminum or stainless steel pans. That's because aluminum, or cast iron rather, has a lot more mass to it, and it retains the heat. It doesn't lose the heat nearly as fast as a light, thin stainless pan or an aluminum pan would. And since the pan is losing heat much faster, you have to have it a higher flame under it. With the cast iron, if you're used to cooking on 8 or 9 on your stove, you're probably going to be cooking around 6 or 7, 7.5. So keep that in mind, because a lot of people tend to burn things the first few times they use cast iron. And that's starting to warm up, so I'm going to turn the heat up now to about where I want it when I'm going to start frying, and let this heat the rest of the way through, and we'll get on with cooking. I'll probably edit this pause out when I edit for the video, so let me look over here and see what's happening on the chat if I can see it from here. You just got notified, Brenda? Yeah, YouTube is great for sending out notices that a live stream is live 10 minutes after it starts. I don't know why. They're terrible about that sort of thing. But anyway, yeah, it's getting pretty much heated up, so I'm going to go back to the video. I still got the camera going. I'll just edit this part out. All right, this has been warming up for a bit, and I usually just kind of lick my finger a little bit and touch the pan, and you can tell if it's hot enough. You can dampen your finger with water if you want to, if you're afraid of licking your finger. I'm going to put in a fairly generous amount of clarified butter, or whatever cooking oil you usually use. You don't want to quite deep fry these, but you do want to use a pretty good amount of oil, enough so that it comes up the sides of the potato slices a bit. Let me show you a slice here. You want to come about halfway up the sides of that potato slice. So it'll take a little bit of the clarified butter. And the sharp-eyed among you might notice the oil is deeper on one side than the other. It's because my stove does not set level. I have leveled this thing a million times. It's good for about a day, and then it just kind of wanders away. I'll give her a little bit more here. Clarified butter is, or ghee, as some people call it, is a great thing for frying in because it has a lot higher smoke point than most other cooking oils. This won't start to smoke until you get up to around 500 degrees. I think it's like 490, where plain butter will start to burn at about 300. So it makes a big difference. Clarified butter, you simply melt it, let the water and milk solids separate from the butter fat, and clarified butter is just purified butter fat. I'm going to warm this up good until it starts to shimmer, which it just about is. And even though you'll notice I'm grabbing it right by the handle, even though this is frying hot, it's not quite warmed up in the handle to where I can't touch it yet. Okay, that's doing good. I usually slice my potatoes lengthwise. That way it covers a little better on the bottom of the pan. Now, cast iron is not non-stick. No matter what you do to it, it's never going to be truly a non-stick pan. It'll be 95% non-stick, but some things will always stick to cast iron. Proteins, whether it's meat or eggs or poultry, when you first put it in the pan, it will stick down to the pan until it starts to brown and sear a little bit, and then it will release and it won't stick anymore. Now, you got your potatoes in the nice hot grease there. I usually scrub them around a little bit in the bottom of the pan. And what this does, as you cook the potatoes, they'll shed tiny bits of starch. And that starch will work into little cracks and crevices in the surface of the skillet, and it'll carbonize in there. Seasoning on cast iron is actually an ongoing process. It's not a one-step thing. When you have a new pan or a pan that you just refinished and you season it in the oven, and to do that you just warm it up, give it a very light coat of oil, put it upside down in your oven at 350, 400 degrees is what I usually do. And you bake it for an hour. You take it out, give it another coat of oil, and you keep repeating that 3 or 4 times usually. That silly dog is just going to be in my way, and I can't stop now. Anyway, that gives it a base coat. And seasoning is actually a 3-part process. First, you'll have a coating of oil that sticks to the pan. That I call that coating, oddly enough. Then there is polymerization. Over time, with heat and exposure to air and light, the oil that remains on the pan will start to polymerize. It'll form a hard coating, almost like a varnish on the pan. And after a while, eventually, that hard coating will carbonize. It'll burn off, it'll burn into the cracks and crevices in the surface of the pan. It's little microscopic grooves and scratches in the pan. And they'll fill in with little grains of carbon, and that is what really gives you your true seasoning. Now, you're constantly gaining and losing seasoning, and the starch kind of gives you a good head start on it, because you get that little tiny microscopic grains of starch worked into the iron. It will carbonize fairly quickly. Get them frying up good. And if you have a bare iron pan that isn't pre-seasoned like a Lodge, that will really move things along. And even with a pre-seasoned pan like Lodge, that little bit of residual starch is really pretty beneficial. So we'll let these brown up good. Let's take a couple minutes. I'm going to put a little pepper on them. I'll salt them once I get them out of the pan because the salt sticks better when it's out of the pan. But the pepper seems to stay on there pretty good. But you can see, even right out of the box, brand new, there's nothing really sticking to this. Potatoes don't usually stick unless you're not using anywhere near enough oil and you don't have your pan hot enough to start off with. So they're a good, a good thing to start off with, just so you can get the feel of how cast iron cooks. Come on, you. I'll let these brown up a few more minutes, and I'll be back when they're ready to go. They're almost done, though. Pepper that side. All right, so again, I'll edit this little bit out, and let that idiot dog in. Ugh. Get in here, you. Turn you into a pair of small dog slippers one of these days, Milo. How'd you like that, huh? Anyway. Oh yeah, these are almost done. Now if I can remember the rest of my spiel for the video. It's been a long day. I've been working, we're going to work 410s, which is nice because you get a 3-day weekend every weekend. But I got to get up about 3:30 in the morning so I can get off to work and get there in time, because I'm working a pretty fair distance from home. And I get back about 5:30, 6 o'clock most nights. So I'm a bit tired and a bit spacey, and it's been hotter than hell and humid the last few days. So one of the joys of having chosen working in the hot sun and lifting heavy things as a career path, by the end of the day, you're usually pretty well fried. Just like these potatoes. Oh, that's nice. Alrighty. So I'll come back to the video. All right, these are fried up nice. As you can see, they're beautifully browned. This is a really nice little pan. It's really cooking nice. I'm pretty happy with it. So now that these are done, I'll take them out. Let them drip off a little bit. And slide this off the heat and turn my burner off. Now, there shouldn't really be anything significant stuck to this pan. I can see there's a little tiny bit right here, but there's nothing terribly much going on. Usually I would let this cool off quite a bit before I did this, but since I'm making a video, I don't really have time to do that. So I'll simply show you what you do. Since there's nothing really significant stuck to it, what I'm just going to do is pour off the excess oil. Take some paper towel, trying not to burn myself in the process, and I'll wipe out the inside of the pan. Got my pepper there. Got a few little flakes of pepper that don't really want to come out. And you can see there's one little tiny bit of potato stuck right there. I'm just going to scrape that off, and a little bit there. Other than that, you can see that it's not really shiny. It has a bit of a dull sheen to it. This pan is ready to be put away and stored. Now, if you get something more serious stuck to it, like if you fry meat, you're more than likely going to get some of the juices will cook onto the pan. And if you're making a pan sauce, that's great. You just dump a little water or wine or whatever you're using to deglaze the pan. They call that the fond. And you use that in making your sauce. But if you don't, especially hamburger, cooks out a lot of juices, and the juices will stick down to the pan and kind of burn on. Even if they don't burn, they'll cook on. In that case, you'll want to wash it with a little bit of soap and water. Just hot soapy water in your sink. A stainless scrubber, give it a little bit of a scrub. It shouldn't come off too hard. And then just wipe it off, put it on the stove, get it warm, and give it a little coat of oil, and then you're good to go again. That's really all there is to using cast iron the first time. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. Thank you much for watching. Goodbye. All right, let me salt my potatoes. See how they tasted. Yeah, them are good. Now, I got to move myself back over there and get the camera all moved around. Turn this other camera off. There we go. And I will join you over in my chair. I can finally sit down because I have been on my feet all day and running since I got home, trying to get this all set up. Get my microphone over here. My drink. Gotta love a little dead air now and then. Set that down, set that down. Should be good. Get my mic back on. And then I'll catch up with the comments here because I couldn't see anything from over where I was. Why is this sitting cockeyed? And I forgot to turn that light off overhead. Hang on. I'm always forgetting to turn that damn light off. I guess that's too cockeyed looking. Get this over here. There we go. Nice to finally sit down. Like I said, working all day and then trying to run around like a head with my chicken cut off, trying to get everything all set up. Let me back this up to the beginning of the comments. Hey, Suze, evening. Ron Thompson, nice to see you. We got Deborah E., Granny Prepper, Dennis Fott, Lynn Shepard, Grampy Lobster. Have I ever thought of being a hand model? Yes, I do have beautiful hands. I do. Damn it, I missed some of the crud under my fingernails. I'm sure somebody will have to point that out. What's the fun of being sober when you're streaming, Grampy? It's kind of the point, isn't it? Billy Lee, hello. Always good to see you. Lori Terrell. The burner covers. Yeah, those are diffuser plates. You can find them on Amazon. They're just a steel plate that goes over the electric burner, and they're real handy if you're slow simmering something, because they'll diffuse the heat and heat up pretty nice and evenly. I don't use them generally when I'm frying something, because it takes a while for first the plate to heat up and then the pan to heat up. But if you're doing something where you're slow cooking something, they're really nice for that. Yeah, and Brenda, I managed to see your comment. I don't know why YouTube does that. I mean, especially if you set a reminder, it says, set reminder, and we'll tell you when it's on. Yeah, well, they'll tell you 10, 15 minutes after it starts. But if you don't set the reminder, the little thing will be there in your subscription feed the whole time. Once you set the reminder, it'll disappear. So it kind of makes it tough to do. And yeah, I was making a video for the Needy Homesteaders channel. You're still buffering. Yeah, YouTube is still doing that. It's gotten a little better around for me anyway. I haven't had quite as many streams start buffering on me, but for a while there was just about everybody, and it was just driving people nuts. Or it could be a phone. Yeah, ghee is what they call it in India. And it's actually a little different, because with making ghee as opposed to clarified butter, they'll let the butter brown a little bit before you let it separate and kind of brown the butter a bit. Gives it a little bit more of a flavor to it, kind of a browned butter flavor. Gail Hooper, yeah, taking a look. Yeah, doing it indoors in the oven, you can get, it smells kind of oily when you're baking them in the oven, and it's kind of hot this time of year to do it. Still trying to get your cast iron tortilla pan to not stick. Yeah, tortilla pans, if you're frying tortillas, usually starchy things don't stick very much. It could be a lot of things. You might not have it quite hot enough when you put it on. Sometimes that's a problem, or you might have it a little bit too hot. Kind of takes a bit of practice, and sometimes you get the heat right. Easy Beezy. Yeah, I've been using that a lot. I'll give it, a couple, 3 coats of that when I refinish a pan after I stripped it and all that, and it's all ready to start seasoning. It gives it a real nice base coat, and takes off good from there. I just got here, never heard of it, but check it out. Yeah, it's go to Cast Iron Cookware here on YouTube. It's a guy named Steven Strawn, and his channel is Cast Iron Cookware, and he has a lot of good information. He's really a pretty good guy for cast iron. Knows a lot about Birmingham stove and range. He really collects them, and I got to watch his latest video. Apparently, he finally got a complete set of Birmingham stove and range Red Mountain series all put together, but I haven't had a chance to see his video yet. Yeah, setting the reminder seems to guarantee that they'll tell you about the video way after time it started. So anyway, yeah, that was kind of a fun little adventure there, trying to film a video at the same time as doing a live stream. I probably won't get it over to her channel until this weekend. I probably won't get to edit it until about Friday night or so. And I don't know when she'll be able to post it. There's a few other people that also have videos going up too, so I'll just have to wait my turn. see how it is. But like I said, most of you have already seen seen me frying potatoes and, explaining some of the basics of cast iron the first time you use it. But that's something, a lot of people really complain about. Well, I tried cast iron and geez, I burned everything and it got sticky. That seems to be the two biggest complaints. Now you got to get under my feet, don't you, dog? I wasn't kidding about making you into a pair of slippers. Yeah, you silly mutt. Here, I'll rub you with my foot. There, you happy now? He's always got to do that. I mean, he will not make a sound until I start doing something. I turn on a camera, and he's got to go out. He's got to come in, start yapping. At least the Mastiff isn't trying to climb over top of me. He's outside yet. Yeah, there's quite a number of us that have been helping her out. Because as long as she can keep posting videos to her channel, it'll at least keep her relevant to the YouTube algorithm, because what YouTube loves is if you make a 15-minute video twice a day, that sort of thing, because then they can, jack it full of ads, and then the more ads they can put on it, the more they're going to recommend it. The more they recommend it, the more you're going to get watched. It's kind of a vicious cycle, and they never quite tell you exactly how it works so that you can't game the system. But basically, if you the more videos you put out, the faster you put them out, the more they'll recommend you on the recommendations. And that's actually where you get most of your video views, is it comes up as a a related video or a recommended video, because it's just the way it works, because they've kind of buried your subscriber stream. And with the notifications, if you've been on YouTube for a while, a lot of times you won't get notified of an older somebody that you subscribed to a while back, because when you subscribe, they didn't have the notification bell thing. And unless it dawns on you, hey, you have to go back and find this guy and make sure you've clicked the notification bell, they'll just bury it in your subscriber feed, and you might never know that somebody actually put out a video. So it kind of screwed over a lot of the older content creators who've been here for a while when they did that. My dog is a star here. Yeah, there's main reason I don't let the Mastiff in when I'm doing this is because otherwise he'd be sitting right here with his head on the arm of my chair trying to climb up onto my lap, and he'll push against the chair, and he's strong enough that he'll move me and the entire chair sideways, and all of a sudden I'd be off camera, and then I'd have to try and shove him back, which of course just eggs him on, so he pushes harder, and it gets to be a game with him going back and forth, pushing me around in my chair. Me and you, Acres. Hi, it's good to see you. Have you tried the apple skeevers yet? Yeah. Well, 150 pounds. Yeah, he can get in your lap, but it's a bit of a tight fit, and he's hanging over quite a bit. Actually, it's closer to about 180, I think, now. Oh. Pulling on the little control box for my lapel mic and knock something off. Relative new. Gonna take easy beezy a lot of potatoes before it cooks well. Yeah, I mean, if a pan is well seasoned, even if it's rough like a lodge, it usually doesn't affect it too bad. But some things will stick a lot worse than others. So yeah, the potatoes really do help, because that really helps to fill in a lot of the roughness on them. Oh, you got all kinds of exciting things going on, do you, Angie? Well, me, I'm just slaving away, working in the hot sun, lifting heavy things. Well, actually, I'm indoors right now. I'm doing demolition at a local college. And there's always a big rush over the summer to get, colleges and schools and all the remodeling on that done. So work long hours and try and go real fast. Let's see here. Double back on my things. But yeah, I just barely made it in time for the live stream this time around. So if you tune into the live stream and next week it says give me another 15-20 minutes, you'll know I didn't quite have everything set up in time. Michelle Holmes, your first live stream with me. Well, I hope you enjoy it. Kind of a little bit slow because, like I said, I'm a little bit spacey and tired and fried from the heat. So not terribly with it right now. But then again, I'm usually not all that tightly focused anyway, so shouldn't be too big of a difference. You're in Wisconsin? Well, that's where I am, is northern Wisconsin. And yeah, it's been hot and miserable here, and it's going to be that way for the rest of the week. Probably into next week, too, a little bit. Hopefully it'll cool off. I got to go out and water my garden when I'm done here because I haven't had any rain in about a week or so, at least not here. Over where I'm working, they got like an inch of rain. They had a thunderstorm break out last night, and pretty much everybody but me got rained on, so struggling to keep my garden watered, but it's doing pretty good. I'm real happy with it, and that's going to be another big project later on this summer. I got a couple of those 250-gallon totes, those plastic tanks inside the cage. Then I'm going to build myself an irrigation system for it, pump water out of the lake into the totes and use lake water to water my garden, because it'll be good for it, because there's a fair bit of fertility in the water from the algae and that, and that should really help things along. I showed you how to use your Presto pressure canner. Yeah, I'm glad you like that. That's been a pretty popular video. A lot of people have watched that, and hopefully a lot of people have gotten the hang of it, because like I said in that video, it can take a little bit of practice to get used to using a gauge rather than relying on the jiggler type of weight to regulate your pressure. But once you get the hang of it, it's really pretty easy just to to regulate the temperature on it and keep an eye on things. So I'm glad that you have figured out your canner and you're happy with it, because it's a good thing. A little bit of self-sufficiency, being able to can things. And you can stock up when meat and vegetables on sale. You don't have to have a big, huge garden or anything like that. Just taking advantage of stuff that's on sale and storing it away for later, and not having to have it frozen is really helpful, because I do have a lot of stuff in my freezer, but the electricity out here isn't all that reliable, because I live in the woods and there's always trees falling over the power lines. And, it's nice to know that if I'm without power for 4 or 5 days, I'm not going to have a freezer full of rotten food and nothing to eat. And it's, something you got to be ready for. You have a love-hate because you have to watch it. Yeah, you do have to watch it some, but once you get the knack of keeping the pressure steady, you don't have to sit there and stare at it. You just gotta check on it every 5-10 minutes, glance over at the gauge. I usually got something else going on in the kitchen when I pressure can something anyway, so you warp your canner. Yeah, the Prestos you can. I forget what the exact rating is on them, but you have to, I think it's like 12 or 14,000 BTUs. And if you go over that, you start getting into the chance of warping them, because they're so much lighter. It's nice that they're a lot lighter, but you can't use them on an outdoor gas burner. Most of those put out too much heat, and you wind up and you can wind up warping a Presto canner. Older Prestos are a lot heavier. You can use those on an outdoor burner or a real high output stove. They're all Americans, but they're expensive as hell, the all Americans. But those you can throw them on a coal fire and not have any problem with them. Yeah, 45 minutes to make box mac and cheese. Yeah, I mean, I hate glass top stoves. I was doing some canning with my niece. She lives about 5-6 miles away from me, and she has a glass top stove, and it took probably about twice as long as it should have to heat everything up. Yeah, water bath can, need to play with it and figure out your stove settings. What kind of canner do you have, Brenda? Yeah, all Americans are nice. They're pretty spendy, brand new, and even used ones, when you do find them, they usually go for a pretty good price, but still a lot cheaper. And there's a place online here. It's Pressure Canner Outlet that sells parts for just about every canner made. So if you come across an old All American, they used to have instead of having a weight sitting on a stem, they had a petcock with a little lever on it to release the pressure. And they discontinued that years ago, and they had problems with them. So you can get a stem and a weight for it and replace that on an All American. And you can get gauges and parts and all the stuff you need for any kind of canner. That's where I got the parts for that old Model 7 Presto. I don't know if you saw that. I used that pressure canning on the wood stove, and that's where I got the gaskets and the parts for that. And I got the gaskets for my Miro there too. Yeah, I do pressure can on the cook stove. You have to use on that though. You have to use a weighted regulator, a jiggler type of weight where the weight regulates the pressure, because you can't make the fine enough adjustments to use a 15-pound weight in a gauge, because I have to run about 11 pounds of pressure, 10 or 11, and you can't get that fine kind of adjustment to hold a steady pressure. So you have to have a jiggler weight on it on the cook stove, and add just a little bit more water in your canner when you do, just in case you run a little bit hot, and so that you don't end up boiling your canner dry, because bad things happen when you do that. Yeah, a friend in Lublin who has all three you can get a lot of good stuff at auctions. I haven't been to an auction in a couple of years. Well, no, I had to take that back. Been to a couple last year. I finally got out, but yeah, we used to go to auctions all the time. You can get some of the damnedest things there sometimes. Looking for cheap ones in the meantime. Yeah, I see canners every now and then at Goodwills and secondhand stores, fairly cheap, but you're going to have to replace all the rubber parts. Even like a All Americans, they have a rubber blowout plug. Even though they don't have a gasket, it's a metal to metal seal on those. There's still a couple rubber bits and pieces you're going to have to replace, because if they get dried out, they'll either leak or they won't work, and both of them are bad. Yeah, in fact, what did Angie, I made some, what did I can? It was honey horseradish beans that I canned up on the cook stove. There's a video for that on there. Yeah, 41 quart would be nice for outside. Ma got a great big stainless. It's a commercial kitchen stock pot. Thing's about 35 gallons. And she'd do her water bath canning with that outside. And you could can, God, I forget how many dozens of quarts in that thing at a time. It was just unreal. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to get out of hand at an auction. You can get end up spending way too much money just to make sure somebody else doesn't get something. You got the nerve to bid against you, so you just keep running them up. Which is kind of fun if you can bail out at just the right time and stick them with paying twice as much as something is worth. But you can end up getting stuck doing that too. But yeah, I would love to have a 41 quart All-American. Because, cause then I can do a lot more outside. Even the 21 quart is too big for some people because, it's heavy to move around, especially when it's full. But if you have a stove hood, a lot of times there's not quite enough room to get the big canner underneath the stove hoods. Never been to an auction, but you love a good garage sale. Yeah, garage sales are good too, but auctions are fun. I mean, it can be, especially if it's a good auctioneer. Some of these guys, they got a pretty good patter, and it's entertaining just to listen to them sometimes. And let's see, where's you can. My grandma used to collect carnival glass, and she went to auctions all the time, and she knew all the auctioneers around here, and there's a couple of them she would just give them hell when they were up there auctioning stuff, just for the sake of harassing them because she didn't like them. So it's kind of fun. Yeah, All-Americans are pretty easy to use, because they have the the way to gauge that jiggles when you're at the right pressure, but it has a gauge on it too, which I really like having a gauge on a pressure canner because then you can tell what's going on inside, if things are heating up too fast or if something funny is going on. But with the All-American, when you set the lid on, you have to make sure that the lid is even all the way around. It's good and square before you start tightening the handles down. And also helps you put a real thin film of Vaseline around the inside of the rim when you set it on. It makes it easier to get on and off, and keeps them keeps them sealed and good. That's about all I know about All-Americans, because I think I know Ma used to have one years and years and years ago, but I haven't used one myself since I was a kid. Because Ma used to can a lot, and she finally gave up on it here the last few years, but pretty much everybody in the family does a fair bit of canning, so yeah, I go to a lot of the Amish auctions. Yeah, farm auctions are always fun. It's kind of sad because there's fewer and fewer small dairy farms around here anymore, but there's still. I found a Dutch oven, just says Ozark, USA. Yeah. I've heard there's a Ozark Foundry in St. Louis, I think it was. But if it just says Ozark, I don't know if that's the same thing or not. There's an Ozark Trail brand, and they're new, and they're new and they're made in China. They're fairly rough. They're not all that great. I mean, they're great for camping, something like that, if you don't mind losing it, but they're kind of heavy to tote around. But they're entirely different. But the one, if it just says Ozark, I think that's the one from St. Louis, and they're made in the 20s up into the late 40s, maybe. I'm trying to remember offhand. But yeah, you get it cleaned up. That's nice to find something like that buried in your backyard. Is the All-American hard to use if a person has arthritis? Yeah, they're a good bit heavier than the newer Presto ones. They're a pretty heavy-duty piece of equipment, and you also have to tighten down there's set screws around the rim of the lid. You flip them up and you tighten the knobs down to seal the lid down. So if you have arthritis, it can be hard to tighten those knobs up. I had been out there at least 30 years. Yeah, that probably is a Ozark Foundry from St. Louis. They're worth fairly good money. I see them sell usually for like 40, 50 bucks or so for the Dutch ovens. If it has a lid, it's worth a good bit more. But I usually see them selling for fairly decent money. But the Prestos can be a bit tough too, because you have to hold the bottom still and turn the lid. So it kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. At least with the All-American, you can use kind of a cheater on the knobs to help tighten them down. Yeah, the graniteware water bath canners. Those are a great place to start. But you can get them pretty inexpensive, but something bigger for outside really is nice. You can still find them in antique stores every once in a great while for a small fortune. If you ever saw the big oval water bath canners, they're usually about 3 foot long and about, 1.5 feet deep or better. And a lot of times they're copper. And a lot of them, eventually they're either copper or galvanized. If they're galvanized, eventually they just rusted through. Or if they're copper, they would kind of burn out and start to leak. So you can't really find them anymore. I don't think anybody makes them new. And if you find a good one, and it's going to be in an antique store or an auction or something, you're probably going to pay a fortune for it. But like I said, Ma had gotten, it was an industrial kitchen sized stock pot. I mean, it was just a great big stainless pot, was a lot bigger than a turkey fryer even, but it was the same sort of a thing. It had a lid for it. If you look around restaurant supply outfits, Brenda, you could probably find something like that. That would work great for, you could use it for scalding chickens. It would work good for that too. I think the one she got is, it was like a 30-gallon. And graniteware pressure canner? Huh, no, I've never seen that. I'll have to look next time I'm at Menards. Yeah, I never heard of a graniteware pressure canner. Sounds like it'd be pretty cool. Well, I do have that one really ancient. I did a video on it, on kind of the history of pressure canners. I'll get there eventually. Pressure canners, and it's a flex seal. It has a flexible lid that kind of bends up to seal it, and that was a heavy graniteware type thing. Do I use all my cast iron? Yeah, I pretty much, I work my way through them, just to make sure that they all get used every now and then, because that really does help to keep cast iron in good shape if you use it. The more you use it, the better it gets. So I make a point of, grabbing a different pan pretty much every time, just to, make sure they all get used at least occasionally. Some of that stuff's well over a century old, and don't be afraid to use antique, ancient cast iron, because unless you do something stupid and drop it and crack it on the floor or something like that, it'll keep it in better shape than it would be just hanging on a wall. Because, like I said, seasoning is an ongoing process, and the more you use it, the better it'll get, and the better protected it'll be. Time to put the animals to bed. Angie said goodnight. Night, Angie. Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here pretty soon, too. I got to go out and water my garden yet and feed my critters before them feral cats drag me off. They're getting hungry. I got a bunch of feral cats that live out on my porch, and there's one of them decided he wanted to be a house cat. Every time I open the door, he's trying his damnedest to get in. When did I get into cast iron? Well, I always used it as a kid at home. Ma used quite a bit of cast iron, and my wife had some that she'd always used. So I pretty much used it all my life, but I really started collecting and restoring it probably about 8-9 years ago. And how long I started doing videos on it, I think about 3 years, maybe. Making something with strawberry rhubarb soon. Yeah, I got to check on my rhubarb. It's gotten kind of, I got to transplant it because where it is now, it's getting shaded by a sumac, getting kind of taken over. And actually, I think it might be starting to go to seed already. I haven't really looked all that close to it. But yeah, strawberries aren't in season yet, but the rhubarb should be. I sure wish you would. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up here. Go out and water my garden. I'll show you the... Let me see if I can get so you can get the... actually read what it says on that. Junior. Any of my moms? No. I think my sister wound up with most of that. Mom's still alive. And she gave most of it to my sisters. Yeah, see, that's a junior size. Crusty corn cobs, Wagner ware. Patent 1920. Yeah, that's going to be up for grabs when I get to 20 channel members. Yeah, who did Ma say she gave that to? My sister got some. I think she gave some to my niece. And, but I got some of my wife's cast iron. And I got some of her mother's cast iron, too. Anyhow, like I said, I got to get going. So we'll wrap it up here. Is that pan for you? It could be. If your name is the lucky one to get drawn out of the hat when I do the drawing, I'm giving away this and one other thing, which I still haven't decided on yet. I'll keep teasing you. Right now I'm at 15 channel members. 5 more. That's that many. And we'll have the drawing for those things. But I think that's pretty cool. That is really... I do have a weakness for the nickel-plated stuff. I really like that. But anyhow, I'm going to go water my garden, say goodnight, then get to bed fairly early tonight, hopefully. And we'll see y'all next week. And hopefully I'll be able to make it home from work in time and get everything set up without having to delay things too much. And I'll see you all next time.